Welcome back to the channel, to this breakdown of a real-world data breach. Today, we're diving into a specific incident from the Privacy Rights Clearinghouse list that will show just how costly and impactful data breaches can be for companies and why preventing them is so crucial. Think of this as a story where, with each part, we'll uncover what happened, why it happened, and, most importantly, how it could have been prevented. To make things easier to follow, let's start with a quick overview of Equifax, a company responsible for handling the sensitive financial data of millions of people. In 2017, Equifax experienced one of the largest data breaches in history. This breach exposed the personal information, things like social security numbers, birth dates, and even credit card numbers of nearly 147 million people. Imagine the risk and damage to so many individuals and the company itself. Now, let's dive into the root cause of this breach. What actually caused it? Well, it all started with a vulnerability in a widely used web application framework called Apache Struts. Hackers discovered this weakness in Equifax's system, which was unpatched, meaning it hadn't been updated with the latest security protections. This allowed the attackers to break in and move through Equifax's system undetected for weeks, accessing sensitive information along the way. So, what could have been done to prevent this? Here's where Equifax made a costly error. They had been alerted about this vulnerability well before the breach, but they didn't take action to apply the patch right away. If they had kept up with security updates, they could have avoided this entire incident. So, one major takeaway here is that keeping up with software updates is absolutely critical. Now, let's talk about risk exposure. Because Equifax handled so much personal and financial information, their risk exposure was massive. When this data got out, it put millions of people at risk for identity theft and fraud. And for Equifax, this meant they were at risk of losing customers' trust that's very hard to regain once it's broken. Companies that store large amounts of personal data have an even greater responsibility to keep that data secure because the risk is much higher when there's a breach. But it wasn't just about personal information. The breach exposed Equifax to major financial risk as well. According to estimates, the total cost of damages and remediation for Equifax was about $1.4 billion. This includes fines, legal settlements, and the costs of securing their systems afterward. So, the financial damage from this breach was enormous, showing how one security flaw can lead to a massive financial loss. Now, beyond the financial impact, we also have to consider other forms of damage to Equifax as a company. After the breach, Equifax faced a big hit to its reputation. For companies that handle sensitive data, trust is everything. And for Equifax, this breach damaged its public image and caused many people to question whether they could be trusted with personal information. As a result, Equifax lost a significant amount of credibility with both customers and partners. So, what can be done to prevent something like this from happening again? The key lies in proactive security measures. First, companies need a solid incident response plan. That way, if something unusual happens, they can respond quickly and minimize the damage. Second, patch management is essential. Companies need to stay on top of software updates and security patches. Finally, conducting regular security audits can help identify any weaknesses in the system before attackers do. All of these steps add up to what we call a defense-in-depth strategy, which means having multiple layers of protection. If one layer fails, there's another to back it up. In Equifax's case, having these measures in place might have prevented or minimized the breach's impact. In the end, data breaches like this one remind us just how important it is to keep security front and center. The cost of ignoring it is high, not just financially, but in terms of trust, reputation, and overall business impact. By learning from incidents like the Equifax breach, we can better understand the critical steps that help keep information safe and secure. So that wraps up our look into the Equifax breach. Hopefully, this has shed some light on how breaches happen and what can be done to prevent them. Thanks for watching, and remember, proactive security is always cheaper than reactive responses after a breach.